Mrs. Diana stood in front of the mirror, staring at herself, at what she had become. A shadow of the woman she once was. Her face was covered in bruises, reminders of the slaps and beatings from her husband, Mr. Mark. A tear slipped down her cheek. "Mummy, are you crying?" Mara, their only child, stood in the doorway, her small eyes filled with worry. Mrs. Diana quickly wiped her tears and turned to face her daughter, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "No, sweetheart," she said softly. "Mummy's just tired." Mara wasn't convinced. At only 6 years old, she had already learned to recognize the sadness in her mother's face, the way she flinched at loud noises, the way she covered the bruises with long sleeves and scarves. Mara stepped closer, reaching up with her tiny hands to touch the dark purple mark on Diana's cheek. "Did Daddy do this again? Mummy, why are you staying? Dad is not a good man." Diana's throat tightened. She found herself lying again to her daughter, to protect her daughter from the truth. "Mara, I have told you anytime I and your dad are having a conversation you should stay in your room and lock your door, till I come and knock. Your dad is not a bad person, trust me, he will definitely come around." "Mummy, but I am scared." Diana knelt down, cupping her daughter's face in her hands. "Listen to me, baby," she whispered. "No matter what happens, I love you and I'll always be here for you. You understand?" Mara nodded slowly, but before she could say anything, they heard the sound of heavy footsteps approaching. The air in the room changed, Diana felt it, and so did Mara. Mr. Mark was awake. And he hated waking up alone. Diana quickly straightened up and ushered Mara toward the door. "Go to your room, now," she whispered urgently. Mara hesitated for only a second before obeying, disappearing down the hall just as the bedroom door swung open. Mark stood in the doorway, his eyes cold, his presence filling the room like a storm cloud. "What the hell are you doing?" he muttered, his voice thick with sleep. Diana lowered her gaze. "Nothing, I was just—" His hand flew to her face. The force of his hand sent her stumbling against the dresser. She let out a scream, covering her face. Mark exhaled sharply, as if irritated by his own actions. "Don't make me late for work," he said flatly before turning away. Moments later, she heard the front door slam. Diana stayed where she was, her cheek burning, her heart pounding. With shaky legs, Diana dragged herself to the kitchen and began preparing breakfast for the family, a simple meal of pancakes and tea. Within a few minutes, she placed the food on the dining table and went to get Mara. By the time she returned, Mark was already seated, munching on his breakfast. They ate in silence, the air heavy with unspoken words. Soon, he was done. Without a word of thanks, he grabbed his office bag and car keys, then stepped out of the house for work. Diana let out a quiet breath of relief. She then prepared Mara for school, helping her dress before walking her to the school bus. Watching the bus disappear down the street, she felt a pang of guilt. She wanted more for her daughter, a life free from fear. Back inside, Diana sat alone in the big, empty mansion. Disappear down the street, she felt a pang of guilt. She wanted more for her daughter, a life free from fear. Back inside, Diana sat alone in the big, empty mansion, memories of her former life flashing before her eyes. They say marriage can make or break a person. Hers had shattered her. Before she married Mark, she had been everything a man could want in a wife: educated, independent, with a promising career. She had a good life, one she had built for herself. Then she met Mark. The signs hadn't been there, not at first. Their long-distance relationship had made it easy to miss the cracks. Mark lived in Lagos, while she was in Awka. The distance had masked his true nature. They dated for a few months before Mark proposed. Back then, she had been overjoyed. Now, she wished she had seen the truth before it was too late. It all started when she got pregnant with their first child, Mara. Mark had thrown a grand party in her honor, celebrating the news with friends and family. Diana had been over the moon, believing she had married a man who cherished her. But that night, after the guests had left and the house had fallen silent, Mark called her over for a conversation. "I want you to stop working, Diana," he said. At first, it sounded like concern, like he was trying to make her pregnancy easier. Diana smiled, touched by what she thought was his care. "Oh, baby," she chuckled. I know you have my best interests at heart, but I can't just stop working. I've devoted so much to my career to walk away now. Mark's expression darkened. I'm your husband, and I don't want you to work. I'll place you on a salary, and you'll stay at home. Diana blinked, her smile fading. But I can't stay in this big house alone. I'll go crazy. Why? His voice sharpened, irritation creeping in. She sighed, sensing his mood shift. Please, I've had a long day. Can we talk about this another time? She stood up, hoping to end the conversation before it turned into an argument. But then, it happened. Mark lost his cool. Without warning, he shoved her back onto the sofa and slapped her across the face. Diana gasped, her cheek burning. Are you stupid? He spat. Do I look foolish to you? I said you won't work anymore, and that's final. She sat there, too shocked to react. What had just happened? It felt like a scene from a movie, something unreal, impossible. But the sting on her face told her otherwise. And it had all happened too fast. Diana sat frozen, her hand slowly moving to her stinging cheek. Her mind struggled to process what had just happened. Did Mark just hit me? Her heart pounded violently in her chest. She stared at him, searching his face for some sign of regret, an apology, anything to tell her this was a mistake. But there was nothing. Mark stood over her, his expression cold, his jaw clenched in irritation, as if she had done something wrong. Was he drunk? She tried to convince herself that maybe he had too much to drink at the party, that maybe this wasn't really him. Mark, her voice was barely above a whisper. You hit me. So what? He scoffed, rolling his eyes. Irritation, as if she had done something wrong. Was he drunk? She tried to convince herself that maybe he had too much to drink at the party, that maybe this wasn't really him. Mark, her voice was barely above a whisper. You hit me. So what? He scoffed, rolling his eyes. You were being disrespectful. Diana's mouth fell open. Disrespectful? She echoed in disbelief. I'm your husband, Diana. I make the rules in this house. He exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over his face like she was exhausting him. Look, I don't want to argue. Just do what I say, and things will be fine. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Just do what I say? As if she were a child. As if she had no thoughts, no dreams, no say in her own life. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she forced them back. Mark sighed, his voice softening slightly. It's for the best, babe. You'll see. You don't have to stress yourself working anymore. Just focus on the baby and taking care of the home. He leaned down, grabbing her chin roughly and tilting her face up to meet his eyes. You understand me. Diana swallowed hard and gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Good, he said, releasing her and stepping back. Now go to bed. We're done talking. With that, he walked away, leaving her sitting there, numb and shaken. The next morning, Diana had prepared for work despite Mark's demands. She refused to let last night's incident change her decision. She had spent years building her career, she wasn't going to throw it all away just because her husband suddenly decided she shouldn't work. Dressed in a crisp blouse and skirt, she stepped out of the bedroom, heading toward the dining table for breakfast. Mark was already seated, sipping his tea. His eyes flicked up, narrowing the moment he saw her. What are you wearing? His voice was dangerously calm. Diana swallowed but kept her chin up. I'm dressed for work. Oh, really? He let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Before she could react, he grabbed his cup and threw the scalding tea at her. A sharp scream tore from her throat as the burning liquid splashed across her chest. The pain was instant, searing through her skin. She stumbled back, clutching herself. Are you crazy? Mark roared, slamming the empty cup onto the table. Didn't I tell you that you will no longer work? Diana barely had time to process what was happening before he stood up, fury blazing in his eyes. With a swift motion, he yanked his belt from his trousers. Her breath caught in her throat. Mark, please. But the first lash struck before she could finish. A sharp crack filled the air as the leather belt sliced across her arm. She cried out, stumbling backward. Please stop, she begged, raising her hands in defense. But he didn't stop. He towered over her, rage contorting his face as he struck again. And again. Diana collapsed onto the floor, shielding herself as best as she could, sobs racking her body. She couldn't believe this was happening. The man she had once loved was beating her. Like an animal. And in that moment, as the pain tore through her, one terrifying thought consumed her mind. She lay there in pain, her body aching from the lashes, her skin raw where the belt had struck. The room spun around her as she clutched her bruised arms, silent tears streaming down her face. Mark had left for work as if nothing had happened, leaving her crumpled on the floor, drowning in shame and confusion. Everything was happening too fast. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't even think. Was Mark just having a rough day? Was that why he snapped? The questions swirled in her mind, but no answer could justify what he had done. She was too shocked to decide what to do next. That night, Mark returned home with flowers and chocolates. Diana's stomach twisted at the sight of him, her body tensing as he approached. "Baby, I'm sorry," he whispered, kneeling beside her, his voice suddenly soft, almost tender. He held out the flowers, his gaze pleading. Diana turned away, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "Mark, please," her voice was weak, exhausted. "I don't know what came over me," he said, inching closer. "I swear, it won't happen again." He pressed the flowers into her hands, forcing her to take them. His fingers gently brushed over hers, and for a fleeting moment, he looked like the man she had fallen in love with. Against her better judgment, she let him hold her. That night, the love treatment was fierce, almost desperate. Mark kissed every inch of her bruised skin, whispering how much he loved her. But the pain never left. And neither did the fear. Slowly, it happened again. And again. The first slap. Then a punch. Then the belt. At first, he would always beg afterward, bringing gifts, whispering apologies. And every time, Diana forgave him. But soon, it became a daily ritual. He no longer bothered to say sorry. He no longer tried to make up for it. Even when she lost their second child to a miscarriage because of his abuse, Mark barely reacted. Diana lay in a hospital bed, hollow and broken, her body still recovering from the trauma of losing a baby she would never hold. Mark sat beside her, scrolling through his phone, barely acknowledging her pain. And even after everything, he grew worse. Diana lost herself completely, her self-esteem shattered, her voice silenced. She made excuses for him, telling herself he was just stressed, that he didn't mean to hurt her. She prayed endlessly, hoping for a miracle, for the man she once loved to return. But the nightmare only deepened. Now, as she sat in the empty mansion, a house that once felt like home but had long since turned into a place of torment, she stared at the clock. The hours slipped away too quickly, yet the days felt endless. With a deep sigh, she pushed herself up and headed to the kitchen. She prepared lunch in silence, her mind numb, her movements mechanical. Afterward, she did some laundry, the rhythmic scrubbing of fabric the only sound in the vast, lonely house. Through it all, she waited. Waited for the only light left in her life. Mara. Her only source of happiness. And the only reason she was still holding on. That evening, it happened. The moment that pushed Diana over the edge. Her only source of happiness. And the only reason she was still holding on. That evening, it happened. The moment that pushed Diana over the edge. The moment that made her realize it was time to go. It had started over something small. She had forgotten to iron his suit that morning. A simple mistake. But as Mark got ready for work and pulled out the wrinkled fabric, his fury ignited like dry wood meeting fire. His voice boomed through the house. "It's bad enough that I pay all the bills in this house, and the little things you're supposed to do, you can't even handle," he roared, as if he wasn't the one who had forced her to quit her job. Diana sat still, gripping the hem of her dress, knowing that anything she said could make things worse. "Am I not talking to someone?" Mark snapped, stepping closer. Her breath caught in her throat. She willed her voice to stay steady. It slipped my mind. "I'm sorry. Please, let me iron it right now." She never got the chance. Mark flung the suit at her, and as she caught it, his foot connected with her stomach. The force sent her crashing to the ground. A sharp cry escaped her lips. "Please. Mark, please," she begged, her body curling in on itself, but her pleas only fueled his rage. He grabbed his belt. The familiar whip of leather cutting through the air sent terror coursing through her veins. Before he could strike, a small figure appeared out of nowhere, standing between them. "Mara! Stop it, Dad," the little girl screamed, her tiny body trembling but unmoving. "Stop beating my mummy." Mark's nostrils flared. "Get out of my way, you rascal. Your mother is a disgrace." Mara didn't move. Diana gasped, her heart pounding. "Mara, go back to your room," she pleaded. But it was too late. With a sudden, vicious motion, Mark swung the belt at the child. The lash landed with a brutal crack. Mara shrieked. She fell to the floor, clutching her arm, her small body convulsing in pain. Diana's world stopped. She scrambled forward, gathering Mara in her arms, shielding her daughter with her own body. "Mark, stop. She's just a child," she sobbed, but he didn't listen. "Oh, I see how it is," he sneered. "You two have ganged up against me." The belt flew through the air again. And again. Landing on her this time. Diana took the blows without a word, her only concern shielding Mara. The pain didn't matter anymore. Finally, as if he had tired himself out, Mark tossed the belt aside, straightened his shirt, grabbed another suit from the closet, and left for work as if nothing had happened. The moment the front door slammed shut, Mara broke down in fresh sobs, clutching her mother's dress. Diana held her tightly, rocking her gently, but her mind was already made up. This is it. She had endured too much. But for him to go this far, hitting her child, hitting her in front of Mara, it was over. No more excuses. She had to leave. And this time, nothing would stop her. Diana knew she couldn't wait another day. With trembling hands, she searched through the drawers, her heart pounding. She found some money Mark had carelessly left behind, pounding. She found some money Mark had carelessly left behind, just enough to get her and Mara far away. She grabbed a small bag, stuffing in a few of her clothes, then Mara's. There was no time to take much. Mara sniffled beside her, watching in silence. "Mummy, are we leaving?" Diana scooped her up, holding her tightly. "Yes, baby. And we're never coming back." With one last glance at the house that had become her prison, she stepped out. And never looked back. The journey was long, but Diana didn't care. Every mile between her and Lagos felt like a breath of freedom. Mara, unaware of the weight her mother carried, seemed happier, humming softly in the back seat. They arrived in Awka late at night. A Keek tricycle took them to her father's house. Diana banged on the gate, exhaustion threatening to consume her. Her mother, the only family she had left, opened it. At first, she stood frozen in shock. Then, seeing Diana's bruised face and Mara's tired eyes, she gasped. "My God, Diana, what happened?" Tears welled in Diana's eyes. "Mama, we're home." No more words were needed. Her mother pulled her into a tight embrace, ushering them inside. That night, after freshening up and eating, Diana lay in bed with Mara. For the first time in years, there was no Mark. No shouting. Just peace. When Mark returned late that night, he barely noticed the silence in the house. His mind was clouded with exhaustion and irritation from work. Without even glancing around, he walked to the bedroom, kicked off his shoes, and collapsed onto the bed. He didn't realize the house was empty. It wasn't until the next morning that he noticed something was off. The house was eerily quiet, no sound of Mara's small footsteps, no scent of breakfast from the kitchen. He frowned, stepping into the living room. "Diana," he called. No answer. His eyes darted around. The closet door was slightly open, half of Diana's clothes were gone. Mara's school bag was missing. Panic surged through him. He rushed to the drawers, yanking them open. Some money was missing too. His heart pounded. She was gone. Mark clenched his fists, his breath ragged with rage. "You dare leave me, Diana," he muttered. Mark stormed through the house, flinging open doors, checking every room as if expecting Diana and Mara to be hiding somewhere. His breathing grew heavier with each empty space he found. She was really gone. His hands clenched into fists. Where could she have gone? He knew Diana had no close friends in Lagos, he had made sure of that. She had no job, no income of her own. She has nowhere to run. He tore through the wardrobe again, throwing out the remaining clothes as if they could give him an answer. His chest tightened. His jaw tightened as he grabbed his phone. Wherever she was, she wouldn't get far. Diana, he muttered under his breath, his eyes dark with anger. You think you can leave me? This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Mark shamelessly wandered through the neighborhood, asking a few people if they had seen Diana leaving, but no one had. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Frustration clawed at him. He had never imagined Diana would have the nerve to actually leave. He had always thought she was too weak, too dependent. And yet, here he was alone. For the first time, he realized how much he relied on the woman he had treated like a servant. There was no breakfast waiting, no one to iron his clothes, no one to absorb his rage before he left for work. He had hit her every morning, and now, there was no one to hit. Annoyed, he tried to make tea and pancakes, but he burned the pancake, and the tea tasted awful. Furious, he abandoned everything, storming off without turning off the gas cooker. Stepping into the shower, he let the warm water calm him until a sudden thought hit him like a slap. The contract. His eyes darted to the clock. 8:30 a.m. His meeting was at 8 a.m. sharp. Shit, he cursed, scrambling to dress. He threw on the first suit he found and rushed out the door. In his panic, he didn't even notice the faint smell of burning coming from the kitchen. By the time he arrived at work, 9:30 a.m., the damage was done. The investors were gone. His boss's furious glare cut through him like a knife. You had one job, Mark, his boss seethed. One. Do you know how much money we just lost because of your incompetence? Mark tried to explain, his voice strained with desperation, but his boss wasn't listening. There's no excuse for this. His boss shook his head in disgust. If this happens again, you're done here. Mark clenched his jaw, rage boiling inside him. First, Diana. Now this. His life was falling apart. And he wasn't going to let her get away with it. As Mark stood in his office, fuming over the lost contract, his phone rang. It was an unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him pick up. Hello, he barked, still irritated. Mr. Mark. Your house is on fire. Mark's breath caught. What? The whole mansion is burning. We tried calling the fire service, they're already here, but it's bad. Everything is going up in flames. A wave of dread crashed over him. His mind raced. Then it hit him, the gas. He hadn't turned it off. His legs wobbled, and he sank into his chair, his pulse hammering in his ears. Everything he owned, his luxurious home, his possessions, all of it was turning to ash. He needed to leave. Now. Without thinking, he stormed into his boss's office. Sir, I need to go. My house. But his boss cut him off, his face stone cold. Permission? Permission, he scoffed. You lost us millions this morning, and now you're asking for time off. Sir, it's an emergency. You know what, Mark? His boss leaned forward, his voice ice cold. Don't bother coming back. Mark stiffened. You're firing me? Yes, his boss said without hesitation. Now get out. Mark stood there, stunned. His job. His house. Everything gone in a matter of hours. Without another word, he turned and walked out. For the first time, stunned. His job. His house. Everything gone in a matter of hours. Without another word, he turned and walked out. For the first time in his life, Mark had nothing. Mark drove like a madman, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. Smoke still billowed in the distance, a dark reminder of what was once his mansion, now reduced to nothing but ashes and rubble. As he pulled up, the reality of it all hit him like a punch to the gut. Firefighters moved through the wreckage, but there was nothing left to save. His jaw clenched in pure rage. This is all Diana's fault. If she hadn't left, none of this would have happened. If she had just stayed, if she had just obeyed him, his life wouldn't be falling apart. Fury burned in his chest as he stomped back to his car, slamming the door shut. He wasn't going to stay here. He'd book a hotel, clear his mind. There was still huge money in his bank account, and his documents were safe in his office bag. And most importantly, he wasn't done with Diana. He would find her. And when he did, she'd regret ever leaving. Lost in his thoughts, he didn't see the massive trailer speeding toward him. Crash. Everything went black. Mark was rushed to the hospital, his body shattered, his spinal cord completely damaged. The doctors did everything they could to stop the bleeding. He was awake, and watching his own death unfold. Mark lay in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to move his legs. The doctor's words echoed in his head like a death sentence. "You will never walk again." At first, he refused to believe it. This can't be happening. Not to me. But as the weeks passed, reality sank in. His once powerful body reduced to nothing. The money he once boasted about, it drained faster than he expected. Surgery after surgery, therapy after therapy, yet nothing changed. He remained trapped in a body that no longer obeyed him. Worse still, the accident had destroyed everything he had left. His documents, his business plans, all lost in the wreck. Without them, without his position at work, his wealth began slipping through his fingers like sand. No friends visited. No business partners reached out. The people who once feared and respected him had all disappeared. And Diana? She was gone. Free. And for the first time, Mark realized he had lost everything. Mark began to regret everything, the abuse, the arrogance, the way he treated Diana and Mara. If only he had been a better husband, a better father. Now, lying helpless in a hospital bed, abandoned and broken, he realized too late he had destroyed himself with his own hands. He broke down in tears, dialing the numbers of those he once drank and laughed with, but no one answered. Everyone was too busy to care. His regrets were suffocating. If only he had cherished his family. Now, alone and helpless, he finally understood the pain he once inflicted.